Hi everyone, today I'll be showing yet another One Piece figure in my collection. And yes, I know, it's Nami again. Other crew members of the Straw Hat Pirates will eventually get their time in the sun, but for now, it's Nami yet again, specifically a figure of her in a light and dark teal bikini top and low-riding jeans. This is the outfit we see Nami in post-time skip, 2 years after the crew had separated and trained individually to get stronger in order to face challenges in the new world. Post-time skip, Nami has also grown out her hair to complement her newfound confidence in showing off her physical assets, all of which we'll be looking at later in this video. Nami is the first Bandai Spirit Grandista prize figure in my collection, and what attracted me to this line was the size of their pre-painted figures, which is of a significantly larger scale than your average prize figure. But more than that, I've always been impressed from afar by the level of detail both in sculpt and paint for what is only a prize figure, as can be clearly seen from the front box art. Apart from Nami's portrait-like image on the front, there is also a photo of the entire figure on the side, showcasing some promising paint shading and highlights on her skin tone and jeans. This is followed by an image of her upper half, and lastly another view of the entire figure from a different angle than the last. Now, this particular One Piece figurine I have with me has the distinction of a golden toei sticker, which marks it out as the Japanese domestic market version of the figure, which in turn, rightly or wrongly, makes it a much more sought after as well as pricier version for some collectors. As with most Bandai Spirit's crane prize figures, protection of the figurine is mainly through the thick cardboard padding, with parts of the figure itself wrapped inside plastic bags, as is the case for Nami. And as you can see, I'm struggling a bit trying to pull the plastic bag containing the figure out from the cardboard padding, as the fit is quite snug and tight, which is a plus point as it prevents the figure or parts of it from moving around during transit, thus reducing a source of potential damage. Grandista Nami comes in two distinct halves, an upper half that consists of her head, torso with bikini top, arms and hands, as well as a lower half comprising her low-riding jeans, legs and feet with high heels. But that's not all. Also included is a small external part that is supposed to attach to her feet in order to help stabilize the figure in a standing position. While occasionally you would also find extra bubble wrap protection included with Bandai prize figures in general, it would seem that a Grandista figure's relatively large size precludes that possibility. Moreover, the trifecta of plastic wrapping, thick cardboard, and tight fit is protection enough, I feel. So anyway, with all the parts of Grandista Nami laid out before us on the work mat, let's go ahead now and give the respective parts a quick once-over before we start putting her together. We'll begin with the small external piece, which is turquoise in color, and I will presume it's to be attached to one of Nami's foot in order to help stabilize the figure's standing pose. Next, we have the figure's lower half, i.e. her low-riding jeans, which has been given an additional light blue layer of paint over the molded in darker blues of her jeans, at least on the front half. The light blue layer of paint coupled with the in-mold darker blue on the creases combine to provide depth to her jeans, while the orange high heels contrast well with her blue jeans, as both are complementary colors. At a glance, outstanding features of the upper half include the beautiful sculpt and clean paintwork of her bikini top, as well as nice skin tone shading to accentuate Nami's curves. This is balanced against her disappointingly monotone hair that, while well sculpted, lacks tonal variety. We'll do a detailed close-up look later. For now, it's time to put both halves of Nami together to see how the figure will actually look like whole up on the display shelf. Assembly of Nami isn't actually rocket science, as it only involves matching a rectangular peg on the figure's upper half to the corresponding hole on the lower half. And while you won't get a satisfactory click sound when both halves have been connected, after all, we are working with softer plastics, the fit nonetheless feels fairly tight and secure, enough that both halves shouldn't come loose easily. As for the turquoise base piece, not only do I think it's a bit of an eyesore, which looks out of place on the figure, I also found it a struggle to get the piece to fit nicely onto her foot. As such, I don't intend to use it to stabilize Nami's standing pose. Most likely I'll just use blue tack adhesives on the soles of her feet instead. When we move on to views of Nami in a standing pose, just know that she'll either stand on her own 2 feet or with some blue tack for help. But before I get Nami onto her feet, let's first do a proper once-over of the Grandista figure of this popular One Piece character, as she is seen on the Return to Sabaody and Fishman Island story arcs, with a close-up and detailed look at the figure's features. Bandai Spirit certainly did a great job capturing Nami's new look, following the 2-year time skip on the One Piece storyline. She returns with grown-out locks that's almost waist level in length and a seemingly newfound confidence to flaunt her arguably more well-endowed assets. While the likeness factor is good when considering her facial features alone, I do feel that her hair seems a tad flat, in that it lacks the Farrah Fawcett-like big hair volume that I remember Nami spotting in both the story arc. Nami's monotone orange hair disappointingly lacks any form of shadows and highlights on the locks. Although the nooks and crannies of the sculpted hair do provide some natural shadows, it isn't enough. That said, Nami's pearl earrings, her cleanly painted bikini top and tattoo, as well as the lock poses and bangle on her left wrist, all attest to Bandai's excellent attention to detail. Moreover, this Grandista Nami's torso has the most natural looking curves that I've seen on a figure of her so far. Soft transitioning shadows on her skin tone help to accentuate the said curves. That's Nami's iconic tattoo on her upper left arm, an arm that's also been correctly accessorized with her gold color bracelet and the 3 lock poses on a wood-based wristband. It's a nice touch by Bandai to make the bracelet loosely movable along her lower arm, as well as to have the lock poses comprise clear plastic to mimic a glass compass. Meanwhile, her jeans have been realistically sculpted to show off the natural folds and creases of denim, in addition to having a layer of lighter blue painted on the front half, but leaving the said folds and creases untouched, thus creating shadows. Unfortunately, it was lazy paintwork to leave the entire rear half unpainted in its original molded in color of dark blue. What Bandai should have done, in my opinion, was to at the very least give the rear side of her jeans a coating of mid-tone blues, i.e. a shade of blue that lies between the highlights on the front and the dark blues of the molded in color at the back. Because the end result of this lazy paintwork is jeans that look good from the front but horrendously flat from the back. Nami's high heels is also a monotone orange, which at least is well sculpted. Though looking at her feet highlights a pet peeve of mine for budget price figures, i.e. unpainted toenails and fingernails, the latter of which did admittedly have a clear glossy coat applied over them, which kind of irks me even more because if they could do that, why not paint them too? Standing at 28 centimeters in height, as seen here with the help of some blue tack adhesives on her feet, Nami portrays the unique selling point that Grandista line of figures are known for, namely being one of the, if not larger scale pre-painted figures in the crane price segment. And from what I've seen, the Grandista figures aren't known just for their size. They are also pretty accurate figure representations of their anime subject matters, with a high likeness factor and clean paintwork. But unfortunately, the prize figure category has some inherent shortcomings in the form of flat monotone hues on certain areas of the figure, as well as minor mole lines that mar its aesthetics. In Nami's case, these mole lines run down along the sides of her torso and arms, though fortunately it's not too visible against her skin tone unless viewed up close. As for the monotone hues, it's mainly obvious on her hair and the back of her jeans. Natural shadows arising from the nature of the hair sculpt somewhat mitigates the issue for the hair, but it's a bit weird for the jeans seeing that the front looks great with a layer of light blue painted over the darker molded in blues, while the back is completely unpainted. Meanwhile, Grandista Nami's pose is a good one, that's very much in keeping with the demeanor she portrayed in the One Piece Return to Sabaody story arc. namely one of full confidence after 2 years of intense training to be a stronger crew member of the Straw Hat Pirates. Because Grandista Nami has so much skin showing from the waist up, courtesy of her post-timeskip bikini top outfit, it was to Bandai's credit that the skin tone shading was handled exceptionally well for a budget price figure that is. Even her face seems to have some light shading applied, but I can't tell for sure if this is the case or it was just natural shadows being cast by her prominently sculpted nose and chin. Her beautiful tan skin tone is part of a simple palette comprising complementary colors of a teal bikini top and blue jeans, both arrayed against her bright orange hair. Sadly, it's Nami's flat monotone hair that causes a jarring visual disconnect, especially when the figure is viewed from the front angle. All the work that went into shading and painting her skin tone and jeans, as well as the clean paintwork on her light and dark teal design bikini top, as well as facial features, were let down by her flat, plasticky looking hair. But perhaps I'm being a bit too harsh on Grandista Nami's shortcomings, because when viewed from the front, this pre-painted price figure still looks great and is a sight to behold, especially considering her aftermarket price point of about 5,000 yen or lower. Of course, it helps that other miscellaneous details such as the bracelet, lock post and tattoo were all wonderfully recreated. And while the back of Nami's hair is at least sculpted to allow natural shadows to form, especially in the creases between her many locks of long hair, the nature of denim is such that the same could not be done for her jeans, resulting in a plasticky dark blue sheen, which I'm not a fan of. Posed in a simple and confident stance, her legs are exceptionally long, which is technically accurate as it resembles her anime counterpart. I guess this is Oda Sensei's way of conforming to societal norms that see long legs in a female as sexy. In a way, Nami pulls off this pose only because she's wearing her customary high heels. High heels tends to lend more than a little elegance to any pose, however simple it may be. From her feet all the way to her face, this Bandai Grandista figure of Nami looks extremely good, as in well painted and sculpted. It's only when her flat monotone hair comes into view that I'm reminded of her prize figure origins. And while it irks me that Bandai did not take the final step to paint either highlights or shadows on her hair, I cannot deny that this Grandista version of Nami still looks excellent, especially when you consider her price point in the market. Nami's shortcomings also include the back section of her jeans, which, like her hair, remained in its original molded in color and was unpainted. And if I was to nitpick, then there's also the issue of mole lines on her exposed skin and her unpainted toenails and fingernails. However, there are mitigating factors that lessen these shortcomings. Firstly, her nails were at least given a clear glossy coat, so they were differentiated in a way. Secondly, the mole lines aren't too noticeable unless you view her up close. Thirdly, her hair does have some natural shadows, courtesy of its fairly intricate sculpt. And lastly, the unpainted back of her jeans is largely hidden from view when she's displayed facing the collector. Hence, it becomes kind of a non-issue. In essence, Nami has flaws that ultimately result from her being in the budget price figure category. Yet she excels despite these inherent flaws, provided you are a collector who isn't a perfectionist that believes a figure must look good from any angle. And therein lies my conundrum and hypocrisy. On one hand, I'm such a collector. I expect a lot from a figure to be deemed worthy for display in my own collection. On the other hand, I cannot repudiate the fact that this Grandista Nami figure looks fantastic in my collection, as her flat monotone back section is largely hidden from view. With that, first and foremost, in my mind, I'm giving the Bandai Grandista Nami pre-painted price figure a rating of Diamond or A rank, but just barely. Being a One Piece fan, Grandista Nami is a figure I love having in my collection for its looks and huge size, both of which contributes to her significant shelf presence. Finally, we are at the end of yet another unboxing and review of a Nami pre-painted figure. Going forward, I promise I'll review other One Piece characters from the Grandista line, as well as the popular Mega House Portrait of Pirates line. Until then, thank you so much for watching. Please do like the video if you enjoyed it, and do subscribe to my channel if you would like similar content. Thanks again, be well and be happy.